Welcome to the tutorial on assessment and decision in Jems. In the next minutes, you will see how to enter eligibility and quality assessment results into the system. You will be shown how to enter the decision into Jems, and you will be demonstrated how to return an application to the applicant for modifications during the assessment or for the fulfillment of the conditions. The demo will then be based on the Jems version 4. Let's first have a look on the status flow of the Jems application procedure. The minimum status flow corresponds to a one-step application procedure, and we start with a submitted project, and here we can go ahead with the assessment. First status change is the eligibility check result. Either the application is eligible or ineligible. If it is eligible, it goes forward to the quality assessment and to the selection. The result will then be either an approval with conditions, or a non-approval of the project. If the project has been approved with conditions, it will be returned to the applicant for modification in order to fulfill the conditions, then resubmitted, and finally the decision will be either an approval or a non-approval of this application. Also during the assessment, quality or eligibility assessment, an application form can be returned to the applicant if a program wishes so for minor improvements and corrections. Jems does also cater for a two-step application procedure where there is a full step 1 before the second step. The second step corresponds to the one-step procedure that was just demonstrated. So the step 1 starts with a step 1 submitted project application, and here the eligibility assessment can start, and with the result of the status either step 1 eligible or step 1 ineligible. If eligible in step 1, an application undergoes the quality assessment and the selection process, and then the decision will be either step 1 approved with conditions or without conditions, or step 1 not approved. In this step 1, on the contrary to the second step, there is no function to return an application to the applicant, since any corrections or improvements will be done later in the step 2. So also the conditions shall be fulfilled in the step 2. So all the program officer has to do once an application is approved in step 1 is press the button to start the step 2, and the application goes into the draft status, where then the applicant can fill in the further fields in the application form. Let's now go into the Jems system in order to see a demo how the assessment and the decision are entered into the system. I am now logged in as a program user, and I have the privilege to see certain projects and to do assessment and enter decisions into the system. I find here in my project list a submitted projects in the step 1 of a two-step application procedure. So I select this project. I see the status here, step 1 submitted, and I can access the assessment and decision section, and am here now enabled to enter results of eligibility and quality assessments. These results are entered as a prerequisite for the upper part of this assessment page here, and only here the decisions can be entered once the assessment results are in the system. Entering the decisions will trigger then finally the status change. So here is no status change happening yet. So now I finished my eligibility check, and please note that in the Jems version 4, the checklists feature is not yet developed. So the checklists will have to be uploaded from an external source, and I upload here my eligibility assessment results. Here I have the file, and other privileged users have also access to it and can view it. So enter eligibility assessment. That's the next step I will do, and my project has passed this assessment, and I submit this step, and I see in the overview now also the result of the eligibility check. I can go back into this section, but I can only view what has been entered and cannot change this anymore. So also the quality assessment is done. I enter the result. Project application in this step 1 is recommended with conditions. I have here always a space for explanatory notes. I can enter some remarks here. I can also leave it empty. However, I now chose my option, recommended with conditions, and submit the quality assessment for this application. Now you see the results of the assessments here. The project application is still in the status step 1 submitted, so no status change has happened yet. But now I have enabled the eligibility decision button to enter here. So now what I will do is select if the project is eligible or ineligible. I have to enter a date of the eligibility decision here, and I can submit now this decision. And you see now a status change has happened. My project is now in the status step 1 eligible. For the next step, I can now also enter the funding decision. And in step 1, this application is approved with conditions, and I just enter the condition and the decision date again. And now I can submit also the funding decision. And now the project has moved on to the status step 1 approved with conditions. Now still the applicant cannot edit the application anymore, and the step 2 has to be opened again by a privileged program user. You still see the application form, the reduced one for the step 1. But now once I start the step 2, with clicking this button, you see the fully fledged application form, all the information that needs to be entered for the step 2. So now my applicant can fill in the application in the step 2, and we will quickly do this. I am now switching to the applicant user, and the status is now draft of the project application. This status corresponds to the first status of the second step of a two-step application procedure, but it is the very same status that also an application has in case of a one-step procedure. So now let's assume I fill in as an applicant user all the information, and I'm ready now. Some time has passed to submit the application and hand it back in the hands of the program in order to do the assessment. So now I'm back as a program user here, and you see here now still the assessment of the step 1 and the results, and I have also enabled now this assessment section for the step 2. So again, I perform eligibility assessment and enter the result. I enter the result of the quality assessment with some recommended condition again. And now I'm enabled to enter the eligibility decision. However, now I find that there is a small detail that the project applicant should add. It's nothing really major, but I am able to return the application to my applicant just to complete this information. So I am switching again to the applicant user, and the application is now returned to me. I can edit it, so I can enter whatever information is required, save it in the various parts, and submit it, and hope that now everything is complete. So back to the program user. I can now continue, and everything is okay now with the application. So I can enter the eligibility decision. Again, my project is still in the status submitted. And now I will trigger the status change. The project is eligible, and I have to enter the decision date of the eligibility decision and submit it with this button. So now the final step is to enter the funding decision. The selection committee has decided the project is approved with conditions. I enter a condition here or any explanation, the date of the decision, and submit the funding decision. So now the project is approved with conditions, and in order to fulfill the conditions, again, I have to return it to the applicant to fulfill the condition. Switching back to the applicant user, I see now my project is returned for me for conditions. This means I can again edit my application. I was requested to remove one partner, which I'm doing here with, and submit it again. So now my project is in status conditions submitted, and let's see if the program decides now whether to approve it or not. So I'm back again a program user and in my assessment, and now what I can do, since the funding decision was approved with conditions, I have here the option to update the funding decision, which I am doing here with conditions submitted is still the status. I can decide whether to approve or not approve the project. I decide to approve, enter the decision date, and can now here finalize the funding decision. With this, the application and decision process is finished in Jems. The project can go further into the contracting procedure if it is approved. And this is all from this tutorial on Jems assessment and decision.